All right. Um, so we're going to get right into it, because why not? And I figure before we get our software situation figured out, probably the best thing that we can do is just start talking about music. And when we start talking about music, there's so much to cover. But two really important concepts or components are rhythm and pitch. And we're going to start talking about rhythm because even when you are playing melodies or chords that carry pitch, you're also playing them in rhythmic patterns. So that's where we're going to start. And for this class, we have so many different levels of musicians. Some of you play instruments, and others you don't have any musical background at all, and that's fine. But I like to say that as soon as you get into music production, you are not just a consumer of music. Taking it in and listening to it. You're a producer now. Therefore, you're a musician. So welcome to the club. It's not that exclusive, but it's a cool club to be in. Some of you, those of you who have significant music backgrounds, you might find this lesson a bit simple because you already read music or play your instruments pretty well. But for others, this is going to be the first time hearing some of these terms. And I hope that I can kind of, make it work because what I'm going to do is do it within Pro Tools. And I'm going to do it, by building a drum beat and things like that. So, these are the things of music production that hopefully some music background in the context of programming is going to be fun enough. So we're going to go over a bunch of concepts. We don't have our software situation figured out yet, but I'm going to have you clapping along and answering some questions as we go. When I do this in the classroom, we are banging on tables and clapping and having a good time. So wherever you are, if it's your bedroom or your kitchen or whatever, if there's someone around, know that you're going to be clapping and it's not you just being silly. You're actually doing a lesson. All of this is super important. And when we start producing music soon, I'm also going to be doing it, again, as I said, in Pro Tools. So hopefully you can conceptualize what making music in a DAW being a digital audio workstation, a program for or application for making music, is going to be like. And I like to jump right in and teach the basics of rhythm in the context of a drum set and a drum beat. So drums, because drums are the backbone or the backbeat of most of the music that we listen to. So we're going to look at what makes up a drum set. And I'm going to flip between this presentation that I usually give in class and in Pro Tools to try and make sense of it. So what makes up a drum set? In the simplest form, a drum set is made up of a bunch of different instruments. This is our drum set, This is a bird's eye view. There's the kick drum. And the kick drum is used by using your foot on this pedal that triggers a beater, it's called, that then hits the drum head. Boom, boom. And that's the sound that I make for kick drums. Boom. Then you have your snare drum here. And there's, on the bottom of a snare drum, there's some strips of metal, essentially like coiled metal that creates a crack type of a sound. Or I like to do cack. So I do boom for kick drum, cack for snare drum. Boom, cack, boom, cack. You have your hi-hat cymbals. You have a bunch of different cymbals like crashes. These are crashes here. You have a ride cymbal that kind of, the bell of it kind of goes like ding, 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 ding. Doesn't really sound like that at all, but hi-hat, super, super important. I'm going to kind of go like tsk, tsk, tsk. But as you can see, there's also a foot pedal on it. So when you open it up, it sounds more like tss, and you can control that with your foot. I know some of you are drummers. Please excuse the generalizations. So you have boom, cack, ba-boom, cack, or something like that. Okay? So, and you have your toms. Do, 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 do. And, a basic drum kit probably has 3 toms. Your high tom, your mid tom, and over here the low tom. This drum set from the bird's eye view has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toms, a snare drum, hi-hats, probably 3 crashes and a ride. The 3 main drums, the bread and butter that we're going to kind of talk about right now, are the kick or bass drum, the snare, and the hi-hat, because that's kind of what makes up every drum beat that we listen to. That is a total lie. Not really. It's a generalization. There are certainly some drum beats that don't have those, but for what we're talking about, it's the 3, the triumphant, not the triumvirate, or the trio. Okay, so going back to Pro Tools for a second, and don't worry, I'm not going to explain a whole bunch, but hopefully it kind of makes sense. So this is an instrument. This is not something that comes with Pro Tools, but it is a third-party instrument called Battery. And it's got kicks, you can see that, snares, claps, closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, toms, and whatnot. This is called the Stadium Kit, and it's very rock and roll, big, going to the SEP Center or the Chase Center for a big concert. So you have a kick drum. Boom. Snare drum, cack, closed hi-hat, and an open hi-hat. And there's everything in between. The toms. Okay? It's a weird sounding one because it's so dead compared to these other ones. But those are your basic drums. Now, musically speaking, before we can really talk about making a beat, we need to know a little bit about basic rhythmic concepts. And we're going to start with what a measure is. A measure, which is also called a bar, is 4 beats or 4 quarter notes. We got to get into a little bit of math, but that's not, this is about all it's going to be, some fractions. And so 4 quarter notes, this is of course when we're talking about 4/4 time. Those of you who are like, hey, well, what about 3/4? What about 6/4? 4/4 time essentially is 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I'm snapping right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm clapping. Go ahead and clap with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each time I'm clapping, those are quarter notes. Boom, boom, boom. 4 of those is a measure. And a measure, or quarter notes, can be broken down into smaller values of eighths. So if this is quarter notes, 3, 4, 1, 2, here comes eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's how you count your eighths, is 1 and. You get to your sixteenths and it's 1 E and a. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Kind of hard to do when you're talking and clapping at the same time, and reading, to be honest. So there's four quarter notes per measure, and that's really important to understand. And there's 8 eighth notes per measure. I'm going to actually show you that in Pro Tools because I think that might actually help. So what I'm opening up is called the MIDI editor. It's also called the piano roll. In most of these software applications, there's always a piano roll because you can see a piano. And we're not going to, I'm going to really try not to veer off topic too much here, but I could really go on for days. These piano notes mean nothing except that there's a sound associated with each of them. If it were a piano, then yes, this would be C1, C2, C3, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, because what we have is a drum set up or loaded into this sound, C1 is actually a kick drum, D1 is a snare drum, and if I'm correct, our closed hi-hat is G sharp, A flat. All right, so what I've already done, or I'm just going to undo that, is I'm going to put a kick drum on beat 1, okay? Because typically your kick drum sits on beat 1 and beat 3 of a measure. And don't worry, that's velocity. Hopefully it didn't scare you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me go back for a second. And what we're listening to here is a click track or a metronome. So we don't need to listen to the drum beat at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And if you listen to that, you can hear that the first beat of every measure is a higher pitch. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. And that's an accented note to let you know that when you're playing along to it, where you are in the measure. Otherwise, it's just a consistent tempo. And that's an important idea to understand as well. Tempo is how fast your song or your beat is playing. And up here, we talked about that, or we didn't talk about it in every class. The term BPM, beats per minute, is how many of those clicks you hear per minute. And that's how fast your song is. And most DAWs, I think all DAWs actually, they default when you start a new song or a new session at 120 BPM. And if we're talking about different genres and tempos kind of go together, but there are no rules around this. Some rules are made to be broken, but you need to know them. Like rock music covers everything. There's ballads that are slow. There's thrash metal that's super fast and everything in between. But if I were to make a just quick generalization, I might say that a rock song is 110 BPM. And when we listen to this click, that's kind of the guide for what we're playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. Boom, cack, boom, cack, boom. With the kick on 1 and 3, the snare drum goes on 2 and 4. So what I've done here, as we're listening to the drum set and the click, I'm going to hit this snare drum, which is D1, and I'm going to place a note on beats 2 and 4. So now we have our 4 quarter notes represented, and I will take a moment and break this down a little bit more, but just give it a listen. And let me duplicate it so it goes a little bit longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now I tried clapping just with that snare drum. Okay. That's beat 2 and beat 4. Now, if you look up here, what you see is beat 1 of measure 1, beat 2 of measure 1, beat 3 of measure 1, and beat 4 of measure 1. And then you see that kind of fraction starts over again with beat 1 of measure 2, beat 2 of measure 2, 3, and 4, and then on to 3. And as long as your song is, when you're talking about it in a musical context, that's what it is. Now, why do we see 4 squares per quarter note? So if what I have highlighted right now is 1 quarter note, well, why we see 4 of these is they are representing what are called 16th notes, what we just counted, the 1 E and a. So we have 1 E and a. And right away, I'm going to turn off the click now. If anyone knows double kick, metal drumming, that's fairly, it's not too bad actually. Let me just duplicate this a few times and see. No, it wouldn't go like that. It would be like this. Something like that? Does that look right? No, that doesn't look right. Yeah, we'll throw some more in there. Why not? you have those really loud ones. Anyways, I am going a little bit further than I wanted to. So we're just going to stick with our kick on 1 and 3. Again, so 1 and 3 kicks, 2 and 4 snares. Make them all loud again. All right, so each of these are 16th notes. Now, for those of you who can recognize notation, this is called a grid. So when we see our graphing paper here, essentially, and you can turn the grid on and off. And now I have my grid set to 16ths. That's how I like to work. I can set it to 8ths, and in that sense, in that case, you're only going to have 2 subdivisions per quarter note, because 1/4, double that, is 1/8, and 4 times a fourth, or 4 of them, become 16ths. So we have 2 measures, beat 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hi-hat, and I'm going to add the hi-hat on every other square here. And essentially what that is, because if these are 16th notes and I'm skipping every other one, this is an 8th note pattern. All right. Now, what I can do is so many things, but I'm just going to add a couple of snare drums here, which is kind of a little drum fill, so to speak. And I'm going to change these hi-hats, or this 1 quarter note section, I'm going to make it 16ths. So again, these 4, if I were to highlight all of it like this, that's a quarter note, but because each of these 16th notes are filled in, they're playing 16ths. All right, and that little tit, that is our drum fill. And if I listen to that in a loop, what we're going to hear is that tit kind of lead into this drum beat again. Well, that's embarrassing. I'm not going to get that. No one calls our home phone. Now, I have some notes that I was trying to fix here. We've counted to 4. It's really difficult. We can talk about what drums, and then we've done that. Snares are on 2 and 4, and they're all generalizations. Okay, so now I'm gonna add some additional kick drums in kind of some typical ways, because this is a drum beat and it's absolutely fine and it's functional, but it's boring. So we're gonna go boom, yeah. I'm gonna put one right there. Okay, that's a kick. So what we're doing here, boom, cack, boom, boom, cack, boom, cack, ba-boom, ba-cack. Let's see. Let me make them all. Typically, and this is getting a little far again, you like to have some variation in what I'm playing with right now, which is velocity, but I want it to be really obvious, so I'm kind of just pumping everything up. Let's get rid of this one. That one's a little hard. Okay, so these are almost the exact same, except for this ba-boom, boom. So boom, cack, boom, boom, cack, boom, cack, ba-boom, boom, cack. Try to clap those kick drums, all right? I'm going to highlight this so it plays in a loop, but I'm going to bring back our MIDI editor so you can kind of look along, and hopefully you can hear this. Okay, now try the snare drums, including the fill. All right, now the big challenge. Can you clap the hi-hats? So that's a very basic drum beat. Now let me go back to my presentation. So we've talked about a bar, which is 4 beats or 4 quarter notes, that those quarter notes can be broken up into eighths, sixteenths, even 32nds. And I probably will get to that in a moment, or 64ths even, because I know a lot of you guys and girls who said, I like rap. I like that new rap. It's really common to hear really fast hi-hat rolls. So basic drum beat, kick drum playing on 1 and 3, snare drum on 2 and 4, hi-hat playing quarters or eighths or sixteenths. And a lot of that has to do with genre. So for example, I'm going to get rid of these hi-hats. Actually, I'm going to get rid of all of them but one, and then now, hopefully you can see that I'm placing these hi-hats on the quarter notes. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this fill. I'm going to keep everything really simple again. Back to just 1 and 3. In fact, this is an open hi-hat, right? Closed. Actually, they'd probably call this closed, this like middle closed, but I call it closed, and that's open. But if I move these up like that, and because they're playing on the quarter note, that it's a much longer sound, right? Like tss, instead of tss, it's going to fill up this whole quarter note space. And that's like a pretty rock and roll type of vibe. Now I'm going to change our drum kit, and I'm going to change it to, oh wow, I should have thought about this first. It is the Realist. Where are we? Oh, come on. Oh, no, it's the, T-H-A. There we go. Okay. So a lot of you will recognize these types of sounds. That's a very, trap type of beat. Nah, that one. We got a little 808 there. Okay. So I'm actually going to slow this tempo down from 110. I'm going to make it 70 just because, and hopefully this isn't a mistake. Okay. I want this hi-hat, and I'm going to play eighth notes. But actually, you know what? This is where it gets weird, but I'm going to do it this way. Trap specifically, forget trap. Trap is awesome. It's fine. I'm going to leave it at 7. I'm going to make it 85. And I'm just going to make kind of like a more typical I don't like that kick drum at all for this. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to make a more typical like hip hop beat. Actually, let's open that one. Actually, put it there. All right. So, just moving around things, this is kind of just a basic drum beat. Now, why I was getting a little flustered or off guard is trap is one of those weird things that it tends to be programmed at a super high tempo, but in what's called halftime. And I promise, I won't ask a question about this because it's pretty, if you're not familiar yet. Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is I still have these are just eighth notes, right? But because they're playing so fast, it's really like a feel of 70. So it feels like 70, but it's really at 140. Now, if I were to fill in these two, oops, bring up their velocities so we can hear them. This is going to be fairly fast, but I'm going to change my grid to 30 seconds, and I'm going to draw in a 30-second roll starting at the fourth beat of the second measure. Okay, so the fourth quarter note. So again, even though I'm talking about quarter notes in 30 seconds, if I go back to quarters, or set my grid to quarters, this just means that there are 8 of them in that one quarter note. And playing sixteenths, there's 4 of them. All right, so 4 sixteenths is the same as 1 quarter note, and 8 30-seconds is the same as 1 quarter note. Math. Okay, and we could duplicate that. We could put in a snare fill. Let's see, just add another kick. Actually, you know what? Let's see what that sounds like. Instead of kick, let's add instead of snare, let's add a kick roll. And let's listen to this in a loop. Okay, and just because I had that 808 type of vibe before, you know what? No. I'm just going to layer that. So that's C1 is now an 808, and I'm just going to have it kind of layer on top of our basic drums, our basic kick drum. So here we have essentially whole notes. Now, let's see, is this written in my thing here? No, I don't mention whole notes here, but a whole note is one that you would hold that would last for 4 beats or an entire measure. And that's what this, because, similarly to when that open hi-hat was kind of lasting, this 808 has a lot of sustain. That word sustain means length, musically speaking. Okay, so I think I'm going to pause there. We kind of talked about drums. Let's see, what did we talk about? Again, we talked about the main 3 drums. What are they? Okay, we talked about what a measure is. And in 4/4 time, that means that a measure is 4 quarter notes long, or 4 beats. Quarter notes can be broken down to eighths, sixteenths, 30-seconds, 64ths. This was, an image kind of like what I was showing you, the grid. This is that very simple drum beat with a kick on 1, the kick on 3, snare on 2, snare on 4. In this instance, it was quarter notes on the hi-hat. And you can do all kinds of stuff, okay? So we're going to stop with drums. And I don't know how long this video is, but hopefully it helps to kind of put some things in perspective. I hope you clapped. I hope you saw the potential of what we can do. It's the very beginnings, but here we go, okay?